Welcome back to Analyze and Educate for our Week 8 going into Week 9 quarterback rankings. Guys, playoffs are all set. Brahmas, or excuse me, not the Brahmas, the Showboats, the Roughnecks, and the Renegades all eliminated. Right now, we got meaningless football for the next 2 weeks. But the great thing about the UFL is no game is meaningless because none of these players want to be here. And they're all looking to push to the next objective, which is the NFL, or for some of these guys to come back in 2026. And I do feel like we have a 2026 in the UFL, making it the third year of the league. So we're almost at the point where we match the original UFL of 4 seasons, and we haven't had to condense the season like they did in the OG UFL. But even more importantly, guys, we are continuing to push on from 2019 to the present with the AAF, the XFL, the TSL, the USFL, the XFL, and the USFL, and then the UFL since 2024. So it's a great day and a great era of spring football that we're getting to see. Our quarterback play this week started very anemic on Friday night between the Brahmas and the Showboats, with the Showboats irking it out, but gave us a dazzling performance between two of spring football's most consistent and best quarterbacks out there with our final game on Sunday. We saw huge passing attacks from some teams. We saw someone get their first touchdown of their career. We saw some really bad quarterback play, but in the end, guys, awesome week of football once again. The games are great, even if the quarterbacks weren't. It was fun to watch overall. This week, we saw 9 quarterbacks play this week, which is the lowest total we've seen out this whole season. Only 9 going in, not a lot of swapping or anything like that. 8 of them were able to throw passes this week, but I'd argue that all 9 of them had an impact on the game. Starting off into our honorable mention, it's the man, Holton Ahlers. Congratulations. The most efficient quarterback in probably the history of football, not just spring football, Canadian football, NFL, UFL, whatever it is. Holton Ahlers continues to get it done. If it's within a yard, the man's going to get it done, whether he's handing it off to Davion Smith, forcing a penalty, with one of his pass attempts, whatever the case, Ahlers gets it done. Came in a couple plays this game, apparently called his own number. Apparently it wasn't, he just went, quarterback sneak, goes over the top, doing his own little Drew Brees impression, and gets it in for 6. His first career touchdown in the UFL in professional football. Really happy for friend of the show, Holton Ahlers. Really awesome job. Obviously Arlington falls a little short, but my man Ahlers gets it done. Congratulations, Holton. You're a number 9 quarterback of the week. Our number 8 quarterback this week, and I hate to do it, but it's the reality of the situation, Kevin Hogan. We saw amazing quarterback play at that position for the Brahmas the last 2 weeks. Even though they only scored 3 points his first go around as a starter, you did feel like Hogan had the best chance to get this team either competitive or just the ability to put his receivers in positions to succeed. This week, tried to do too much, got a little too cute, bunch of tip ball passes, threw 3 interceptions. Their most explosive play came from Steve Stylianos, who I think, in my opinion, is going to be a great Ram in a couple weeks. Really excited to see what he does at the next level. But Hogan came in, 14 of 25, 90 yards, 5 rushes for 12 touchdowns, or excuse me, I wish 12 touchdowns for 12 yards and 3 interceptions. Those interceptions were killer. 2 of them while they were driving the ball, 1 in the red zone. Obviously 1 return by Cam Dancer for a pick 6. Every time he threw a pick, it negatively affected the outcome of the game. That was ultimately the difference. And they were still in the position to win as well. Obviously, Vizcaino missing a field goal. Just not a recipe for success. Now, this is the question. With 2 weeks remaining, you have Jacob Harris, Marquez Stevenson, John Trey Kirkland, Greg Ward, Steve Stylianos. They just signed a tight end out of Northwestern, Gordon. You really wonder who puts these receivers in the best position to succeed. And that's the question head coach Peyton Pardee has to ask himself. Do I ride with Hogan, who statistically has been my best quarterback for the Brahmas, or do I give Guarantano a chance to show what he can do? Guys, we've seen Guarantano. It's not much. You're looking at a 2 for 3 success rate. Going back to last year, Hogan had a cup of tea and did really well. And that's the question. Does Kevin Hogan put your receivers in the best chance for them to continue their NFL dreams? I don't know. They haven't really got the ball to Jacob Harris since he's been there. It's really been the Marquez Stevenson show. They have Big D Anderson down there as well. I personally ride with Hogan because he's not going to be afraid to push the ball downfield, and that's what's going to get these guys on NFL spotlights. Hell, John Trey Kirkland had a couple nice drops. Once again, this guy had 3 touchdowns with Hogan if he could hold on to the ball, but we'll see what happens. On the other side of the Showboats Brahmas games was Troy Williams. He gets his first start and left you wanting a lot more. Big Troy Williams supporter over here. What I like about Troy right now is he's playing for his place in the league. Troy's 30 years old, going on age 31. You don't know what the market is for him in the NFL. There's probably not one, to be honest with you. He's never really had any NFL buzz. A couple years up in the CFL, did some good stuff with the Maulers. Wasn't a big passer. I think only threw 6 touchdowns in 23. Comes back in 24 with the Showboats. Doesn't do much. This week he goes 5 of 11. 36 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, 6 carries for 29 yards. Now, I think this was his cameo for what's going on. We'll know more in the middle of the week with, Jim Turner, interim head coach over there from Memphis, kind of alluding that Memphis will be giving each one of these guys a final cameo throughout the league or throughout the week. They had Dresser Wing going for 3 games, won a big game against Birmingham, really enjoyed watching him succeed, regressed a lot versus Michigan. And obviously, versus St. Louis, a lot of regression there, but still putting up a serviceable stat line, of course. He's been the best quarterback for them this year. You wonder if, Turner, because I don't think Williams does anything outside the final 2 minutes, in overtime to really push you to think he's the guy. He's a great guy. You have extremely mobile and whatnot. But do you want to see what Perry can do for his final game? Do you want to see what Wynn can do? That would kind of give everyone a fair shot going back to 2024 with Williams. I'm very curious. But for me, Williams was constantly first read, moving onto his legs, trying to rush the ball a lot. You kind of saw that Turner was pushing him to do that, but you wonder what Mazzone's impact and what Mazzone thinks as far as if that's the type of offense moving into 2026. But, Turner's been saying himself, he's like, I'm not guaranteed to have this job this year. I want to win games. They could possibly do that. And we'll see what happens moving forward. Our number 6 QB this week is Max Duggan, the 4-0 Max Duggan, the playoff-bound Max Duggan, still having trouble connecting. There's the windup, there's the pitch, and by that time, a defensive back knows what's going on. Duggan continues to do what we know who he is. 12 of 21, 110 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 10 carries for 54 yards, 2 on the ground. Timing issues, pressure from the tackles, forcing him to not get comfortable, that unconventional throwing motion, that's your bugaboo. That's your scouting report right there. Have a spy on him, you might be okay. Now, Coach Anthony Beck, he did come out and say that maybe some of these other guys are going to get an opportunity to play, showcase their skills. What does that mean to me? It means we're going to see a little bit of Jerome Cap. It seems we're going to see some Kevon Latuis. Maybe you're going to get Ryan Cole in there. Maybe you're going to get Cole Spencer playing a little bit more. Bradley Ashmore, maybe he starts and whatnot. The playoffs are set. They're not playing for anything right now. They're going to be in the dome for their playoff game. Battlehawks have 3 more opportunities, to really push that attendance to where it needs to go. I'm very curious to see what happens not only with Battlehawk attendance. Do we get football fatigue? I'm not sure. I doubt it, especially if in the playoff environment. But I'm also curious to see if they let Silvers get a little bit of reps. Brandon's the best passer on that team, able to push the ball downfield. I have no faith in Trey Self. You wonder if Chevon Cordero, his IR time is coming up. These are all various possibilities of what the Battlehawks can do at quarterback to really get a better taste of what they got depth-wise. I think you know what you get in Silvers. I really don't think you want to push out you want to push out Trey Self in a playoff game without any reps. Silvers has been your QB2, but with Duggan, we know who he is. He's top 10 rusher in this league. He's got 5 rushing touchdowns. That's the most in the Battlehawk season, ironically. This is a guy, I don't know how much better he gets, and that's a shame because he had so much hype out of college, but you wonder if he can go to the NFL as a Taysom Hill type and just kind of change it up. we'll see. The Cardinals, they've used Clayton Tune as kind of a backup to, push the pile forward. They've had Strevler there as well. Very curious to see what happens with Max Duggan in his future. But right now he's 4-0 and he's a playoff quarterback. And I think a lot better than what we saw a couple weeks ago for sure. It's kind of a weird indictment for our number 5 quarterback. 30 of 50, 316, 2 touchdowns, a pick, 9 carries, 24 yards. Feel like a lot of those yards are empty yards. There was more opportunities because I think the Panthers defense, who he was playing against, did a really good job of flipping the field, short fields for Danny Etling. Obviously, Xavier Malone had a great game. He had 178 all-purpose yards on punt and kick returns. So you saw McClendon more, and his stat line was a little bit inflated. Now, there were some bad drops, a lot of targets to Justin Hall, who had a great game. You also had some bad throws, and you had a couple, obviously Kenna Lovely takes one to the house on the screen that they've been showing all game. So you really, great job by Colin Bauer and the defense of coaches there prepping the team for that. But that's their MO, they're going to do that. And then they're going to run levels across the field. They're going to run slants when you play a little bit of press and they're in a mug front and whatnot, which is 2 linebackers creeping into the A gaps on the defensive side of the ball. The formula is there for McClendon to be successful. You really want to see what he can do with a more progressive, offensive-minded head coach. AJ Smith has come out and said he had McClendon as his second highest rating quarterback behind Silvers. So that's someone you really get pretty high up on and pumped about if they decide to make a return to the league. Right now, I think McClendon kind of goes into your 4, 5, 6 quarterback based off his ability. Guy's got a rocket for an arm. He's extremely mobile, and he continues to gain experience every week. This is a guy with less than 1,000 pass attempts since since high school. I think he graduated in 2019, 2018. It's pretty crazy, but over this year we've seen a lot from McClendon, but you just need a little bit more. You need a little bit more, and from there, I think you can make a better decision. As the room stands now, yeah, I rock with McClendon in 2026 for the Roughnecks, but we'll see what happens. Welcome back, Jamar Smith, the official grand opening for his first start since 2023. Set a career high in passing yards. Ironically, the only time he's ever done that was against the Houston Gamblers in 2022, and that was his only other loss. He's 11-2 as a starter, 14 of 27, 262 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, added 45 on the ground with 10 carries. You could say it's his best game. I think there are a lot of mental errors. I think there's a lot of miscommunication. You could see it on the broadcast as well, him and Skip going at it a couple times. I mean, I think that's what happens when you've been together with someone since 2015, 10 plus years, almost 10 years of coaching this young man. But in the end, it does seem that I lean towards, because of that nasty pick 6, that maybe Cookus could have managed the game a little bit better. And maybe it's a 20-17 win for the Stallions. We don't live in that reality. We live in a reality where Smith right now is currently the quarterback. Peasley's banged up. Cookus is banged up. Said Magoo wasn't ready to go. I personally ride with Alex Magoo. You brought him back for a reason. You got 2 weeks to kind of let him go. I think Magoo, his athletic ability against a massive and, pass rush might be able to get you out of some holes. That offensive line is not doing well. I worry about their tackles. I worry about Deontay Brown at right guard. It doesn't seem like they have the best continuity up front compared to their past groups. But in the end, you'd like to see him be a little bit more efficient. He took some risks downfield. He threw a really bad interception, Callahan O'Reilly, which mimics the Willie Harvey interception a couple weeks back that both went for touchdowns. It's tough to go up against Travis Feeney and Pita Toman-Penu. You got some studs in the middle with Isaiah Mack and Freedom Akinmoladun as well. We don't like butchering names here, but We're very curious to see what Birmingham does in week 9, especially with the playoffs locked up. What a weird position for the Michigan Panthers to be in right now. Playoffs are clinched. Bryce Perkins is not available for their week 8 game with a ankle injury that was listed as probable, and a lot of sports betting people are very upset, affecting the over-unders, the player props, all that good stuff. But Danny Etling comes in and manages the game like a young Alex Smith in the 2011 San Francisco 49ers season. Etling goes 14 of 22, 167, 3 touchdowns while adding 22 on the ground for 5 carries. Did a really good job of taking what the defense gave him, did a really good job taking advantage of the short fields, the great special teams plays by Xavier Malone, in addition to the great play by the defense. It was an easy game for Etling. This guy's a pro at this, a seasoned pro at this point. He's probably coming up on about 200 passing attempts in spring football. He's got plenty of experience in the preseason as well. Guy came out in 2018, I believe. And from there, you shouldn't be surprised that your backup quarterback can come in with, in my opinion, Michigan has one of the best offensive line from a pass pro perspective. The results don't shock me at all. And, for Etling and that crew and whatnot, I think it's a confidence builder, for your team. Like I said, you got a backup quarterback who's played a lot of college football. He's played a lot with the Panthers over the last couple of years, five starts and whatnot. You can't be too mad. You really can't be too mad about what you're seeing. And you're very curious, once again, like all these teams, what are they going to do in week 9? I think you roll it out there with Etling. I think you roll it out there with Etling, but I do wonder how this affects the Bryce Perkins MVP conversation. Our final 2 quarterbacks, and I'm going to group them together a little bit because their careers, in my opinion, have been grouped together throughout this privilege we've had of spring football. You have Luis Perez at 2 and you have Jordan Ta'amu at 1. Now, if Perez goes down there and finds the end zone on that final drive, yeah, he's number 1. Even if they hit the field goal and, they go to overtime and lose, I probably put him at number 1 because I do think he was a superior quarterback on this fine day until the last play of the game. I think that was a terrible move. For those who didn't watch the game or just watch the highlights, they're driving down the field. I think they got the ball around 2 minutes and 8 seconds left, around the 20-yard line and whatnot. Perez is doing what he needs to do. He's making some great throws, and then there's 8 seconds left. They get moved back because of a holding. There's a 10-second runoff, and Bob Stoops thinks he's supposed to spike the ball, and he doesn't. He throws the out route, and then he ends up throwing an interception. Can't win like that, man. Take your team out. I think it would have been about a 50-yard field goal. Haversack hit a 54-yard field goal earlier. And to me, it just kind of killed the whole game. It was him trying to do too much, make play. And the thing is I think it was like a 7-yard gain. Does that make that field goal a little bit easier? Yeah. But I think there was poor clock management prior. I think they should have been a little bit more aggressive pushing the ball down the field. They were doing a really good job between their stance and their hitch routes and whatnot. Perez was seeing the field great. He finishes up the game with over 300 yards. He goes 32 of 46 for 350, 2 touchdowns, a giant interception, 9 yards on the ground. It just killed an amazing game for him. And it leads into Ta'amu, looking to be the hero. 5-3 against Perez. Ta'amu was seeing the field great. There's no way to really shift it any other way. They go back-to-back weeks as 1 and 2. It's kind of crazy, to be honest with you. It's such a microcosm of their career. And, we talked about the stats and everything like that. If Ta'amu plays in the AAF, he plays in the TSL, that's the guy. That's your spring king, Granted, there's the the XFL championship in 2023, but Ta'amu 5-3 against Perez as a starter. 15 of 26, 240 through the air, 2 touchdowns, 21 on the ground. Add in another 9 yards through a trick play reception from Chris Rowland. Every week, Ta'amu since we started talking about his, critiquing his not taking the checkdowns and whatnot, he's getting the running backs more involved. He's getting Ben Brereton. I can't even say his name. That's how tongue tied I am. But he's getting number 87, the tight end over there, a little bit more involved, with the checkdowns and whatnot. I think he had like 27 yards. The running backs had about 30 plus as well. So many key pieces in this league, so many key pieces on this offense, and Fred Keiss is doing such a great job over there. Very curious to see what happens with DC at the end of the year, but overall, you can't get upset about anything you're seeing from Te'amu right now. Completion percentage is trickling up, and he's just been a pleasure to watch. He's going to hit 2,000 yards. He set a career high in touchdowns and whatnot. It's been great to see him this whole time. So a little bit shorter this week, obviously, because we have less quarterbacks playing. I'm curious to see how many guys play next week if we change up starters and whatnot. I believe there's been 16 or 17 quarterbacks to start a game in the UFL this year. We've seen about 27 of them on rosters between injuries and everything like that. And guys just kind of making cameos like Mike Honessi and whatnot. Very curious to see what our week 9 matchups that are air quote non-playoff implication games. I won't call them meaningless because these guys are out there, given that they're all and whatnot. But appreciate you guys tuning in. A little bit shorter video. If you're new here, please like, subscribe. You can become a channel member, support the channel and everything like that. And I'll see you guys next week. Appreciate it.